has started. Roger, 0G, I feel fine. Godspeed, John Glenn.
Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground.
New possibilities are opening up for scientific cooperation between countries.
2, 1, 0. Liftoff. Americans return to space as Discovery clears the tower.
Discovery, go and throttle up.
Discovery, Roger. Go for deploy.
Thanks, June, and to everybody in the shuttle program. The crew is go for launch.
Roger. Nice to be in orbit.
We have followed in their footsteps to get us where we are today.
You're looking at a live view of the Dragon Endurance spacecraft as we await its departure from the International Space Station on its way back to planet Earth. It's Wednesday, May 4th here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California, and we expect Dragon to push away from the space station at 10:05 p.m. Pacific Time or 5:05 GMT with our Crew-3 astronauts, including Raja Chari, Tom Marshburn, Kayla Barron, and European Space Agency astronaut Matthias Maurer. The crew is currently suited, and the Dragon and station hatches are sealed in preparation for departure. Thanks for tuning in to watch live coverage of Crew Dragon completing its third official long-duration mission for NASA's Commercial Crew program. My name is Jesse Anderson. I'm a production engineering manager here at SpaceX, and joining me today from NASA Communications is Leah Cheshire. Welcome back.
Thanks, Jesse. I love being here. Always a fun time. And so, yes, we're monitoring Crew-3's departure tonight. And once Dragon departs station, the crew's flight home is expected to last a little less than 24 hours. Upon separation from station, Dragon will use its Draco engines to thrust away from the station in a series of carefully choreographed maneuvers, or 4 departure burns, to increase the distance between the spacecraft and the space station. Dragon will also execute a phasing burn to lower its orbit and line the spacecraft up with its landing location.
Next on its trip home is deorbit, entry, and landing, which covers all operations after the final departure maneuver. That includes trunk separation, closure of the nose cone, a deorbit burn, deployment of the drogue and main parachutes, and finally splashdown off the Florida coast, at which point our teams will recover Raja, Tom, Kayla, and Matthias. Tomorrow night, Dragon is targeted to splash down off the coast of Florida at 9:43 p.m. Pacific Time on May 5th, or 12:43 a.m. Eastern Time, May 6th, followed by the crew getting picked up at sea by one of our SpaceX's recovery vessels.
And this is a live look inside Crew Dragon, where those astronauts are suited up and waiting for the undock command later on. But today aboard the space station is the Expedition 67 crew. They are now led by Roscosmos cosmonaut Oleg Artemyev, who just took over as station commander from Tom Marshburn, who is coming home tonight on Crew-3. As a reminder, just like its approach to the International Space Station, Dragon's departure and deorbit is designed to be fully autonomous, meaning there is no action required from the crew on board. NASA astronaut Kjell Lindgren helped the crew members prepare for departure today and might watch from the cupola as they depart, but the prime departure monitoring role falls on Tom Marshburn and Raja Chari from inside Dragon. Mission controls in Houston and Hawthorne will back them up. But for now, let's go over to Sandra Jones at the Johnson Space Center to talk a bit about how the station crew have been preparing to send the crew home and what we can expect from here until Dragon departs station. Sandra.
Thanks, Leah, and welcome to the International Space Station Flight Control Room at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. The flight control team here tonight is primed and ready for tonight's undocking operations. Tonight's Orbit 3 team is being led by NASA Flight Director Rebecca Wingfield. Now, since Crew-4's arrival just last week, it's been a busy week during our direct handover. And over the last several days, the astronauts have worked to pack Dragon full of cargo for their return journey. Along with the crew, Dragon will return more than 250 kilograms or 550 pounds of cargo back to Earth. That cargo includes some samples for continuing human research and some hardware and other items. All of this cargo will get offloaded after we get the crew out of Endurance following splashdown, and the scientific samples will be sent to researchers for final analysis. The crew also took some time to get their SpaceX suits unpacked and ready for the journey home. And since getting the hatches closed just a short while ago, all 4 astronauts are now suited up and in their seats, standing by for undocking. We've got a final go, no-go poll coming up in just a few minutes where the joint SpaceX and NASA teams will make their final call for Dragon to depart the space station. And this is one of many checkpoints in the return that will continue all the way up until just before the deorbit burn. This gives mission managers multiple chances to assess the weather at the splashdown zones and make sure everything is lining up before Dragon departs. So we'll stand by for that final go, no-go, but for now, everything continuing to look good for an on-time departure. So with that, I'll throw it back over to Jesse and Leah in Hawthorne.
Thanks, Sandra. Separation is set for approximately 10:05 p.m. Pacific Time, 5:05 GMT, which is just under 15 minutes from now. At the moment, Dragon is in its final configuration before undocking, and we are waiting for mission operators to conduct their go, no-go poll on whether to move forward with the undocking procedure.
And like we mentioned, this is a fully autonomous departure, just like the approach to the space station, meaning that the crew won't be required to conduct any actions while on board. And it makes it even easier this time since the crew won't have to stop at any waypoints like we see when a vehicle arrives.
Once the undocking sequence is complete, Dragon will use its Draco engines to thrust away from the station in a series of carefully choreographed maneuvers or 4 departure burns to increase the distance between the spacecraft and the space station. From there, a phasing burn will place Dragon on a trajectory back to Earth.
Next on its trip home is deorbit, entry, and landing, which covers all operations after the final departure maneuver. That includes trunk separation, closure of the nose cone, a deorbit burn, deployment of the drogue and main parachutes, and finally splashdown off the Florida coast, at which point our teams will recover the Crew-3 astronauts inside Crew Dragon from the water.
We're expecting the call for the go, no, go poll in just a few minutes or so from now.
So it's been 6 months for these astronauts since they arrived on station, but It was only a week ago that we saw Crew-4 arrive on station.
Yeah, it's been pretty incredible to see the cadence that we've been able to send astronauts up to the International Space Station for these long-duration missions. And so exciting that we were able to get Crew-4 up there to be with the Crew-3 astronauts to do the handoff that they do.
Yeah, I think that's really valuable because as we saw in, I believe it was November last year, we brought home Crew-2 before we sent Crew-3. So they didn't quite have that handover opportunity just because of some weather issues. We want to make sure we give them the best and most comfortable splashdown possible. But beautiful view of Dragon, just moments away now from hearing that go, no, go call, and our crew members getting ready to come home.
Yeah, I'm sure they're pretty excited to come back home. They've been up there again for about 6 months doing science experiments, working, up on the International Space Station. So I'm sure they're probably very excited to come back and see their families back here on planet Earth.
I was thinking about that. It's been 175 days that they've been on the station. And besides friends and family, what's something that you think you would look forward to coming home to?
Yeah, I think probably the top thing would just be like spending time with my family.
Yeah,
right?
That's the best.
You don't get to communicate. They do get to communicate with their families, right, on the station, but it's, it's almost like a video phone or audio phone call. So, I think spending time with them in person would be really nice.
Yeah, it's nothing like
SpaceX on the big loop for status update.
Go ahead, Burgers.
Okay, Raja, just 3 items to talk through here. First is that we saw a good leak check result. The second item is that we are still on track for our departure time of 0500 UTC. And then the last item that I have is that we've identified that the root cause of the timer behavior on your displays is that the vehicle is pulling in BAD and GAD data simultaneously. We expect this to resolve itself as soon as we disconnect the umbilicals for departure, and we've seen this behavior before with no concerns. How copy?
good leak check, still on time for 0500. And the timer behavior will fix itself once we pull the umbilical.
Good readback.
And we just had confirmation that the leak checks aboard Crew Dragon went well. We have also been waiting for that vestibule leak check to be complete. That's the space between the hatch on the station side, known as the APAS hatch, and the hatch on the Crew Dragon side. We want to make sure we bring that.
Endurance on the big loop. Just make sure to give us a noggins up when you're ready for us to go visors down, so we have enough time to do that.
SpaceX copies. I'll be sure to read that one up.
And we also heard them mention some TDRS, or tracking data and relay satellite system, time differences that they're seeing on board the capsule. As you heard, it's of no concern. They're getting this data because they are still connected to the space station. Those umbilicals are still attached, so they're receiving data from the space station. And once they are demated and Dragon shifts to its own tracking data and relay satellite link, that time difference won't be an issue anymore.
And again, departure is tracking for just about 9 minutes from now. It sounds like it is on time. And again, when they begin their departure, they will the undocking procedure will begin to unlatch the latches attached to the docking adapter there, and then the thrusters will push the vehicle away from the International Space Station. So there is a number of events that do happen when we begin the undocking sequence, and then there will be 4 departure burns that will get them into the trajectory to make their way back home to Earth. And those procedures will take, just a few minutes. I believe it's like 5 minutes for the undocking procedure.
It's pretty quick. And if you look now, a beautiful view of Crew Dragon and the International Space Station as they are flying 260 statute miles over the Maldives, traveling at over 17,000 miles per hour. And we're standing by for a call to the crew, waiting to hear that teams here on the ground are go for undocking.
And if you're just now joining us, you are looking at a live view of Dragon Endurance with the Crew-3 astronauts already on board Dragon. They're already strapped into their seats, into their suits. They've already completed suit leak checks. They've also done a leak check of the hatches on Dragon and the International Space Station. And we're just now awaiting proceeding with the undocking procedure, again scheduled for 10:05 p.m. Pacific time or 5:05 GMT.
One quick thing you'll notice, the trunk of Dragon, which is on the left, that'll be jettisoned before the capsule re-enters the atmosphere.
Dragon, SpaceX on the big loop for undock timing.
Go ahead, Frederick.
Okay, Dragon, just wanted to let you know that our final reconfigurations for undock are complete and nominal. Right now we are pulling go for undocking. We're going to go with an undock sequence start time of 0505 UTC to give you guys a chance to get your visors down and confirm your readiness for undocking at that planned departure time. How copy?
Copy, pulling go for undock of 0505 for the sequence start time. And copy, we are go and visors down. In work.
SpaceX copies. We had a 1 hour window for this undock timing, so no concerns.
Copy, and our advisors are down, then copy, you guys will go for undock.
All right, good news. We just heard the confirmation that Crew Dragon is go to undock. We're now waiting for that undocking sequence to begin, and once that happens, it'll take less than 5 minutes for Dragon to separate from the International Space Station, its home for the last 6 months.
The first step in the automatic undocking sequence is for the umbilicals to retract. These umbilicals connect Dragon systems to the space station, transferring power, telemetry, and commands between the two vehicles throughout Dragon's stay. Once that's complete, Dragon will unlatch itself from the space station by releasing the 12 hard capture hooks in 2 separate phases. All that combined will take roughly 4.5 minutes, and then Dragon will be ready to depart from the space station and begin to move itself further and further away using its thrusters.
And Dragon's initial departure from the station is a little different from other docked vehicles like the Soyuz, which relies on springs to push it away from the docking port. Dragon will actually execute 2 short thruster firings to undock using a combination of the 12 Draco engines around the base of the capsule, with the first of those firings breaking any stiction between Dragon and the docking port, and the second slowly backing the spacecraft away. We're expecting the call for the undocking sequence to begin within about the next 10 minutes. But like I was pointing out earlier before we heard that go call, we have these solar panels, solar cells, I guess is a better term for them, on the trunk of Dragon. And we mentioned that Dragon is still connected to the International Space Station and still connected to the umbilicals, so it's receiving power from the station. But once we undock, Dragon gets solar power that will power the vehicle. And then once we are committed to coming home, we'll let go of that trunk, it'll burn up in the atmosphere, and our astronauts will splash down safely.
We're just around 3 minutes away from that undocking sequence beginning. We did hear that go for readiness, so we are on track for Crew 3's departure and ready for them to head home back to Earth.
And since Crew 4 arrived a week ago, I would call a crew of 7 on the space station a full house, but it's been a crew of 11 for the last week, so I call it a fuller house. So it'll take the crew complement back down to 7 astronauts and cosmonauts aboard the International Space Station. 3 of these astronauts were first-time flyers. Tom Marshburn is the astronaut who had 2 previous flights, so everyone's coming home with a little more experience now.
Yeah, and I guess this, for their first flight, this is also their first return.
Yes.
And again, this return will be about a 23-hour ride. So once they undock, it won't be, right back down to Earth just yet. They'll get to cruise in space for a little bit.
And they have some off time during that as well. So they'll get to sleep if they want to. They have options to eat meals while on board. I'm sure they'll be enjoying the last few views from space, sticking close to the window and taking some pictures.
Yeah, and they're currently in their suits. This is a pretty close-up view. They're currently in their suits, in their seats, but once they move away and are a safe distance away from the space station, they can actually get out of their suits, get comfortable, enjoy the ride.
We mentioned a couple of those burns that will help them break away from the space station and then separate them from the station. And they are in their suits, and they just lowered their visors as well. This is all precautionary because these are not major burns, as I might want to call them. These are slow moving. We want to move pretty carefully when we're around the space station, especially while we're inside the keep out sphere and the approach ellipsoid. Those are 2 invisible boundaries that we use to monitor the distance of spacecraft arriving and departing. I believe we're coming up on about a minute until the undock sequence begins.
And this is such an incredible view from the space station. You can see a portion of the space station with Dragon still docked and Earth in the background. It just looks so incredible there.
That's the